Hi and welcome. My name is Lawrence Baker and this video is going to be about why 72 PPI is stuck and it's wrong for screens and why we use 300 PPI for printers. 72 PPI came around in the mid 1980s when Apple Mac computers had 9-inch screens and in 1 inch of screen there was 72 pixels. It's important to understand that every screen has a pixel grid. So there was 72 pixels in 1 inch of screen. The printers printed at twice 72, 144 dots per inch. So the operator would scale his screen to match the printer output. So you could put a ruler against an image on screen and it would be the size it would come out at the printer. So it made life easier. As more screens came around, 72 PPI didn't matter. As a lot of graphic designers were using Macs, 72 PPI stuck. And it is totally irrelevant. Now, think about the pixel grid at all times. Now, this is a very crude mock-up. I cannot change my screen resolution whilst I'm using this screen recording software. So I've made this very crude mock-up. Now, the screen resolution on my mock-up is 1000 by 1000 pixels. The image is 500 by 500 pixels. So that means 500, 1000, 500 there, 1000 down there. The image takes up a quarter of the screen. Now, if you make the pixel grid smaller, i.e. change the screen resolution, and what I mean by that is, for instance, with this little app I've got here, I'm going from, let's say, 2048 by 1152 up to 2560 by 1440. I'm making the grid smaller because I can't change the physical size of my screen in inches. If it's a 27-inch iMac, it will always be 27 inches. All I'm doing is making the grid smaller by upping the pixel dimensions. So let's show you another version of this and get rid of that one now. Now for this, I need to change the grid view on screen. It's nothing to do with resolution. It's just for this video. So I'm going to change it now to 125. So you get the principle in your head. So my image is now looking smaller because the pixel grid has got smaller. That's the reason images start to look smaller if you raise the screen resolution. So 500 there, 500, 1000, 1500, 2000. Same down there as well. And basically it's taking up 1/8 of the screen. By the way, if you want to align things with an artboard, it's straightforward. If you haven't got an artboard, Command and Control A, select all, and then you can use those tools. Little tip there. So if I went even smaller, the grid that is, and 62.5 I'm going to have to use. As I said, it's only for demonstration purposes, this. So there's my 500 by 500 pixel image on a 4000 by 4000 pixel density screen. So that's the screen resolution. So it's a little bit laborious, but one more time. 500, 1000, 1500, 2000, 2500, 3000, 3500, 4000. Back to the middle. So that's how screen resolution works. As you take the resolution up, the pixel grid gets denser, an image of a given size looks smaller. As you make the pixel grid wider, so to speak, you go down in resolution, an image of a given size will start to look larger. Now, when we came to high pixel density screens, with Apple, and that's the Retina screen, what they were doing was to make everything fit. They were doubling the size of the images in pixel dimensions. It's very difficult not to say size when you're talking about pixel dimensions, but I always try and reserve size for the size in bytes and pixel dimensions for pixel dimensions. So what they were doing was doubling the pixel dimensions. If you were serving up a 500 by 500 pixel image to a normal screen, everything was fine. But to serve it to a Retina screen, they had to have 1000 by 1000 pixel version to serve up to a Retina screen. This is not a web development video, but that's basically what happened. And that principle still applies to high pixel density screens. Retina is a proprietary name from Apple, but high pixel density screen is where we all are at the moment on our phones, for instance. So if you've got a very dense grid, that means your pixel grid in 1 inch of screen, let's say, is very dense. You have to serve up larger pixel dimension images. Now, if you use a content management system like WordPress, Wix or Squarespace for your website, let's say, when you upload an image, what happens is the content management system creates clones of that image at different pixel dimensions. The aspect ratio will never change. Then it makes sure if a certain device comes along, it's served the right pixel dimensions to fit on screen. And even browsers will do resizing as well if it doesn't fit quite well. So that's what's going on at the moment. That's why it's important to understand for high pixel density screens, you need to serve up larger pixel dimension images. So let's deal with 300 PPI. Let's ignore this now because this actual image in size is, I'll put it back to pixels, 1000 by 1000. And all that 500 bits got nothing to do with whatsoever because I'm talking about the whole size of this image now, 1000 by 1000. So at 300 PPI, and what 300 PPI means, or PPI when it comes to printers means is, you're saying to the printer, represent in 1 inch of paper 300 pixels. A dot of ink does not equal 1 pixel. There might be thousands of dots of ink to make up a pixel. There's no one-to-one relationship between a dot and a pixel, but there is a relationship, of course. So all you're saying with resolution is basically in 1 inch of paper, I want represented with ink 300 pixels. So if you wanted make this image larger in inches, let's say, let's put this on inches, because at 300 PPI, I'm going to get with 1000 by 1000 pixel image, 3.33 inches by 3.33 inches. So if I wanted anything larger than that, that size there will have to get larger. So twice that is 6.666. And guess what? It's turned the image to a 2000 pixel by 2000 pixel image. And this is called interpolation. In fact, here they call it resampling. But what it is if you're making the image larger, you're pulling the pixels apart and you have to infill them. Now it's on automatic, but you get a rough idea what's going on when it says nearest neighbor. So it looks at the nearest neighboring pixel and might pick those colors to infill the pixels it's created, or the gaps it's created. Now, if you're making it smaller than 3.33 inches, you're going to have to throw pixels away. And maybe here there might be one, I think it is sharper for reduction. So they are sharpening up the pixels as well. It's a complex subject, but basically, if you leave it on automatic, it will do a pretty good job. But as you get to understand interpolation better, use your own ones. And I think the best one is preserve details too, by the way. Anyway, so that's what resampling is. It's interpolation. Now, if you're throwing pixels away, that is downsizing. If you're creating more pixels, that's upsampling. So with that ticked, Photoshop basically does all the work for you. And it does a pretty good job. Now, it comes a point when you can't really push your images, let's say, to 13 inches here. It will just not look good, basically. This interpolation always causes a slight degradation of quality. You can get away with a lot, but if you're going up to huge sizes, you probably wouldn't get away with it. But then if you're printing a billboard that has to be seen from 400 yards away, well, then it probably won't matter. That concept of resolution also depends on where you're looking at something from, how far away you are from it. And that's why with high pixel density screens, they worked out a certain distance from the eye, the ideal pixel grid, or the pixel density. So that is basically driven high pixel density screens because, you know, the nearer you hold something to your eye, obviously, that means if you have to hold it too close, it means basically that the screen resolution isn't right. If you're holding about 6 or 7 inches away, then what these phone manufacturers do is make sure the pixel grid is dense enough so things look pretty good on screen. I hope I've got that concept across. But you can see what's happening here. Now, if I untick resample, it will neither throw away pixels or add pixels in. But basically, if you change something here, let's say to 6.666, it's put the resolution down to 150. So it is quite confusing, this concept, and it throws a lot of people. What I'm going to say to you now is you don't do it that way. You just have 300 in here. Why is 300 come about? It's basically from lines per inch. I think 300 is absolutely fantastic, and draft quality is 150. So that's why 300 is stuck as well. But you don't just put 300 in there willy-nilly. If you're going out to a commercial printer and he says 300 PPI, that's what you do. If your manual for your inkjet printer says 240, that's what you do. You put that 240 in there, and then you change the inches here, which you want. So that's the most important concept to understand. Of course, for screens, you can leave 300 in there, but when you've got pixels there, it doesn't really make any difference. But you just put the pixel dimensions you want. But you are resampling all the time as well, so you are getting some degradation in quality. To recap then, 72 PPI is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You cannot change how an image looks on screen only by changing the pixel grid, which makes it larger or smaller. And every screen has a pixel grid. So when you go into print, you need to find out what resolution the printer wants, because you can't say to the printer, oh, I want to print with this resolution. It has a fixed resolution. It has a draft printing mode. That's something you can control from the printer software, but you can't say to them, I want to print 150 PPI. It prints at what it wants to print at. So try and match it with that resolution there as well. I hope you got something from this. It's an often confused subject, and I'll probably go into print in a little bit more detail in my next video. Thank you very much.